Hello and welcome to News Now. I am Deji Badimasi. The Nigerian military has admitted that its reputation and that of the country is at stake over recent gains made by militant Islamist sect Boko Haram. In what appears to be an official confirmation of its recent setbacks against the sect, military spokesman Major General Chris Olukolade in a statement said everything would be done to reverse the situation and defeat the terrorists. Boko Haram had taken control of the towns of Gwoza, Bama and most recently Banki, all in Borno State, outgunning and overpowering government troops. The capture of the strategic town of Bama, which is just 70 kilometers from the state capital Maiduguri, has got people apprehensive that an attack on Maiduguri may be imminent. Security in the city has now been beefed up, but there are reports some residents are living for fear of an attack. But in this latest statement, Major General Chris Olukolade said the Nigerian Armed Forces is more than ever determined and committed to the defense of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Nigeria, regardless of any odds. He urged citizens not to lose hope or be disenchanted, but to remain steadfast and supportive of the military in the Northeast insurgency. Now, the United States are giving a damning verdict of the security situation in Nigeria, saying the country's future and the reputation of its military is at stake. Addressing the media in Abuja, visiting Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, says Nigeria's security situation at the moment calls for, quote, a sober reality check. Listen to what she said.
There is an urgent need to stabilize the security situation as a first step in restoring freedom of movement and livelihoods to the hundreds of thousands of Nigerians who've been affected by Boko Haram. Since we last met in August of 2013, the frequency and the scope of Boko Haram's terrorist attacks have grown more acute and constitute a serious threat to this country's overall security. Boko Haram has shown that it can operate not only in the Northeast, but it has flexed its muscles in Kano and Abuja and elsewhere. And we're very troubled by the events that have taken place in Bama over the last few days and the prospects of an attack on and in Maiduguri, which would impose a tremendous toll on the civilian population. This is a sober reality check for us all, and it's past time for denial and for pride. It's time for action. Despite our collective efforts, the situation on the ground is worsening. The conflict has affected the lives of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people in the Lake Chad region. Cameroon's military is increasingly forced to fight Boko Haram in its territory, and they flee back into Nigeria. The Chibok schoolgirls that set off the attention of the international community and others remain hostages, enduring horrible and tragic suffering. Shekau's bold announcement that Boko Haram is now governing a caliphate only adds to the perception that the security situation is worsening. All of these developments are deeply troubling, they're deeply disturbing, and increasingly dangerous with each passing day. The United States is close to announcing the launch of a major border security program under the Global Security Contingency Fund, which will include Nigeria and its neighbors Cameroon, Chad, and Niger. We continue to provide technical training to Nigeria's military and police forces engaged in the fight against Boko Haram. As an important part of this effort, we're pleased to provide advanced training to a Nigerian infantry battalion, and we applaud the motivation of this unit and the progress that it is making. It is critical that the investment in this unit be properly maintained and utilized upon deployment with clean supply chains and adequate supplies, a strong chain of command, and missions and values that address Nigeria's counterterrorism threat and keeps civilians safe. The reputation of Nigeria's military is at stake, but more importantly, Nigeria and its children's future is in jeopardy. Failure is not an option here.
Now, reports that Boko Haram may have captured the strategic town of Bama is deeply worrying, especially for residents of Maiduguri who believe they may be the next target, if indeed the sect has taken over Bama, which is the second largest town in Borno State and just about 1 hour's drive away from Maiduguri. So far, the military has neither confirmed nor denied the town, which is home to an army barracks, has fallen. But we asked a former military officer if it's possible for Boko Haram to launch an attack on Maiduguri and what the military doesn't seem to be getting right in the war against the insurgents.
It's unimaginable, but it's not impossible. I'll tell you why. It's not impossible is meant to say we should not underestimate the threat. We should rather overestimate them. As we speak, I have watched many footages of the leader of the sect, Malam Shekau, making claims. I'm yet to see any footages of our own government making counterclaims. It takes nothing for a troop commander or a politician to actually stand in Bama and tell Nigerians, I stand here in Bama and I speak to you. You see, it's propaganda. It's about confidence building or confidence eroding. If a man decides to stand anywhere on this planet and claims he's elsewhere and starts talking, if there is no counter to his claim that is commensurate to the claim he made, he's going to gain ground. He's going to gain grounds. As I speak to you, Maiduguri is a state capital in Nigeria. The proximity to Bama is there. Ab initio, before now, the tactical implication of Bama to Maiduguri should have been seen by the troop commanders. The tactical implication of Goza to Sambisa should have been seen by the troop commanders. Goza, for me, is attractive to the insurgents because of the mobile police school there and because of the mountains. Sambisa became untenable because if you wanted to find the insurgents' base in Sambisa, all you need to do is to find the water line that sustains the forest. You will find the camp. They probably did that. So it became untenable and they had to move out. The next possible place would have been this. What I'm simply trying to say is, if we sit down and enter into the minds of the insurgents, we'll begin to have insight that will inform what we do. But most of the time, what I see is the authorities sit down in the Federal Capital Territory and just sound off their statements. Whereas these insurgents do what they have to do and claim they're in ground zero. You could be watching a footage that was probably done in Marwa village in Cameroon, and he claims I am on ground. It's about propaganda. It's about eroding the confidence the people have in their own institutions and systems. Ours must do something to get it back. Malam Shekau does that with his own those footages that go viral on YouTube and what have you. But what are we doing to counter that? Nothing. War is every bit propaganda as it is ground operations or air operations. The most important thing you must understand is you have to take ground and hold it. Beyond that, you also have to take the people's confidence and hold it. If you lose the people's confidence, even if you're on ground, you won't make much.
Now, a United Nations agency report released Friday say Nigeria has the largest number of young homicide victims with almost 13,000 deaths. Drawing on data from 190 countries, the report from the UN Children's Agency, UNICEF, indicates in 2012 alone, almost 13,000 deaths of young homicide victims were recorded in Nigeria, making it the highest number of child homicide in the world. Now, you can't blame, you can actually blame part of that on the ongoing insurgency in the northeast of the country, which has claimed the lives of several young persons. Now, children around the world are routinely exposed to violence ranging from murder and forced sexual acts to bullying and abusive discipline in places where they should otherwise be safe, UNICEF says. Brazil comes second in the report with approximately 11,000 deaths. The UN report said in 2012 alone, almost 95,000 children and adolescents under age 20 were victims of homicide, making it a leading cause of preventable injury and death among children. Quite sad, I must say. Really sad. Now, the U.S. Pentagon has confirmed that the leader of Somalia's Islamist group Al-Shabaab, Ahmed Abdi Godani, was killed in a U.S. attack in Somalia earlier this week. The U.S. carried out airstrikes on Monday night targeting a convoy in which Godani, who was a co-founder of the group, was traveling. According to the U.S., removing Godani from the battlefield is a major symbolic and operational loss to Al-Shabaab. Prior to the strike, the U.S. military was tipped off to what authorities called actionable intelligence, strong enough to suggest Godani's whereabouts. Godani was one of the U.S. State Department's most wanted men with a bounty of $7 million placed on his head. He had headed the Al-Shabaab, which has terrorized East Africa, killing Somali officials, aid workers and others in a spate of suicide bombings. Godani had publicly claimed the group's responsibility for the deadly Westgate shopping mall attack in September last year, which killed at least 39 people in Kenya. Now let's turn to the Ebola virus. The Nigerian government has reversed the resumption date for schools across the country to September 22nd. Minister of Education Ibrahim Shekaru had earlier fixed October 13th as the resumption date for schools following the Ebola virus outbreak in Nigeria. Now, the decision had been taken to ensure that adequate measures were put in place before the students resume, but that decision has now been reversed. The new development follows an order from the Federal Executive Council on a review of the previous directive given to schools for resumption. Shekaru announced the new resumption date while briefing newsmen after an emergency meeting with state commissioners of education in Abuja. He, however, said that preliminary measures put in place to curb the spread of the Ebola virus disease is still intact. So the schools will be resuming September 22nd, actually. Now, the Lagos state government seems to be leaving nothing to chance in its effort towards containing the Ebola virus disease in the state. With the resumption of primary and secondary schools in the country drawing close, the state organized a workshop for proprietors and principals and teachers of public and private schools in Lagos to sensitize them on necessary precautions to take against the disease. State Commissioner for Health, Dr. Jide Idris, who spoke to TV360 after the workshop, said the initiative became pertinent, bearing in mind that children are the most vulnerable to infectious diseases.
Children are supposed to be very, very vulnerable to infections generally, and we realize that schools will soon be reopening, and there's a need for us to sensitize the school environment, especially the teachers, the parents, and let them know what to do, what to put in place against resumption, and the kind of information they require to pass on to the students, the kind of behavior they need to encourage. And that's the essence that, yes, children are vulnerable. We always say that Ebola disease is not the killer, but there are certain things, precautions people will take, especially for children.
Now, some of the teachers also commended the initiative of the state government and promised to put to practice all they had learned. Take a listen to what some of them said.
I learned a lot. At least I learned the precautions, how to take precautions on this Ebola, and even at the school is very soon to resume. I have learned on how to educate the pupils, even the parents, even the community and the environment nearby me on how to take precaution on this deadly disease called so-called Ebola virus. When they resume, even before that time, I will send a text to the parents, call them, educate them first on this, the precaution to take. Then once we resume, then many of them will be taking washing of hands with soap and water every day, singing it like a song in the ears of the parents and also on the ears of the pupils and the students, and also using running water to wash our hands, using the soap and water. Whereby those things cannot be available, you can use sanitizer, but the most important thing is using the soap and water every day, as many times as you can do it. It's very, very important and necessary, and that will help us to keep safe from this so-called deadly Ebola disease.
Well, let's just hope they do that. It's one thing to say you're going to do all of that. It's a different ball game to do it. So let's just hope the teachers, the proprietors, and the proprietress actually do all of that. Now, even though it has no recorded case of Ebola, the Oyo State government has directed all the 33 local government areas in the state to establish Ebola isolation centers just in case the disease hits the state. An epidemiologist in the state's Ministry of Health, Dr. Abbas Bolahon, said efforts were in top gear to establish the centers also at the senatorial zones in the state. Bolahon said that the government was particularly keen about establishing the centers, especially in border towns of Iwajawa, Itesiwaju, and Igbeti. He said that the ministry, in collaboration with the WHO, UNICEF, and the University College Hospital Ibadan, had begun sensitization in all police and army barracks, immigrations, and the railways. He added that 16 port officers have been trained at border posts, and health facilities in border communities have been designated as holding areas to isolate any suspected case. Now, well, being proactive, you may want to call that. Now, this might sound strange, but it's a fact. The World Health Organization has recommended the use of blood from Ebola survivors to treat infected patients in an effort to combat the biggest ever outbreak of Ebola. At a press briefing on Friday, WHO expert Dr. Mary Polly Kieni said survivors' blood may be used to treat Ebola and that all efforts should be taken to help countries use the strategy. Now, let me quote what she said. She said, "We agreed that whole blood therapies may be used to treat Ebola virus and all efforts must be invested to help infected countries to use them." End of quote. Adding that there's a real opportunity that a blood-derived product can be used now, and this can be very effective in terms of treating patients, she said. Now, she also said it was the one positive point from so many people being infected. Now, Ebola is transmitted through direct contact with bodily fluids, and health authorities say patients are only contagious once they show symptoms and become sick. Meanwhile, the World Health Body has now confirmed that the death toll from Ebola in West Africa has risen above 2,000. It also says results from safety trials for 2 prototype vaccines will be released in November this year. An American doctor infected with the deadly Ebola virus in West Africa has been flown home and is now receiving treatment for the virus at a Nebraska hospital. Dr. Rick Sakra, who was stationed in Liberia when he was exposed to the virus, is the latest American to become infected with Ebola while working in West Africa. According to the International Christian Mission Organization, serving in mission, he has been checked into the Nebraska Medical Center in Omaha. Sakra was admitted to an Ebola case management center over the weekend near the hospital in Monrovia, where he has served for 15 years. And while Sakra is not likely to receive ZMapp, the experimental drug given to 2 other Americans earlier infected with the virus, but of course have now been treated. And because now the reason is that ZMapp, there are no longer doses of ZMapp available. But with supportive care, experts believe the doctor could very well make a very good recovery. While Ebola can be deadly of course, can kill up to 90% of those infected, about half of people in this current outbreak have actually survived. More than 3,000 people have been infected since the virus was detected in the remote jungles of southeastern Guinea early this year. Ebola has now killed over 2,000 in West Africa. To politics now, the All Progressives Congress has condemned the removal of the chairman of the Osun State Governorship Election Tribunal, demanding an immediate dissolution of the tribunal and the setting up of a new one. The party says this is necessary to restore the confidence of the tribunal in the eyes of the public. Now, the party, in a statement issued by its spokesman Lai Mohammed Friday, said it would clearly amount to mischief if the chairman of the Osun Tribunal were removed while other members of the panel remained. The APC accused the PDP of desperation to clinch power in the state, despite the fact that it had lost at the August 9 polls. The opposition party also accused the PDP of using one of the candidates in the August 9 governorship election in the state to orchestrate the removal of the tribunal chairman, whom it alleges the PDP could not get his cooperation now to secure a favorable decision. The opposition party further added that the removal of the tribunal chairman is unacceptable to it, alleging that the whole process now seems teleguided. In Adamawa State, chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, that's the former chairman, I should say, Nuhu Ribadu, and 7 other aspirants have pulled out of the state governorship race. The 8 of them were part of 14 aspirants who had indicated interest to run for the governorship under the platform of the People's Democratic Party PDP, but stepped down from the race early Friday morning. The development follows a meeting held Thursday night through early Friday between the aspirants and the president of the Senate, David Mark, and members of the National Working Committee of the PDP to prune down the number of aspirants. Now, 6 remaining aspirants will be participating in the party's primary scheduled to hold on Saturday. They include the former political advisor to President Goodluck Jonathan, Ahmed Golak, former military administrator of Lagos State, Buba Marwa, Ahmed Modibo, Dr. Umar Aldo, acting governor Umar Fintiri, and Jerry Kumdisi. Other decisions reached at the meeting included that any aspirant who fails to win the party's ticket in Saturday's primary election must support the party's flag bearer in the October 11th governorship election. Well, we just hope nothing happens after that primaries, because you never can trust politicians with agreement. Now, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has picked one-time Education and Aviation Minister Babalola Borishade as his campaign director in his bid to contest for the presidency in 2015. Borishade was first appointed Education Minister during the regime of former President Olusegun Obasanjo and was later redeployed to the Aviation Ministry. He also worked as a strategist for President Obasanjo in the 1999 and 2003 elections, in which, of course, the former president emerged victorious. Meanwhile, Atiku Abubakar is soon to formally declare his presidential ambition by September 24th. Now, this is the 4th time the former vice president has shown interest in Nigeria's highest office, having first bidded for the presidential ticket of the defunct Social Democratic Party ahead of the annulled 1993 presidential election. Well, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar actually has to get the ticket of the APC first before thinking about running for the presidential election proper, which of course will be taking place in February next year. Now to business. As part of efforts towards boosting small and medium enterprises in the country, the federal government has said it will set up industrial parks for SMEs for the ease of running small businesses. Minister of Trade and Investment Olusegun Aganga, while briefing journalists after the inauguration of the National Council on Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, said the measure was part of the structure put in place to organize the SMEs. Aganga said the industrial parks for SMEs would make it easier for them to run their businesses. The minister said over 17 to 20 million SMEs exist in the country, yet only 8% of them have access to finance from organized sectors. He added that the council, as part of its mandate, would also address the issues of market access, which entails moving and selling goods produced across the country. Well, seems everybody's taking interest in SMEs now. Well, good times for the SMEs then. We'll just wait and see and hope. Now, this might sound bizarre, but it actually happened. A 33-year-old Frenchman has been sent to prison after phoning and testing his girlfriend, his ex-girlfriend, by the way, 21,807 times. Now, can you beat that? He has admitted that with hindsight, his action was stupid. The unnamed defendant, who had made the calls to demand the woman thank him for fixing up their flat, was given a 10-month sentence, of course 6 months of which was suspended, and a €1,000 fine. He will also have to undergo psychiatric treatment and is barred from all contact with the woman he harassed, lawyers in the case say. Now, the defendant, who comes from Rony in southern France, had actually accepted responsibility for the barrage of phone calls and text messages over a 10-month period and had accepted an earlier demand to cease contact with his ex. Now, that is not funny at all. I really wonder how courts here would have handled that situation if it actually happened here. Quite surprising. Texting your ex 21,807 times. Wow. That guy needs some psychiatric examination. Now, barely 48 hours after FIFA issued Nigeria an ultimatum over the leadership of its football federation, factional president Chris Giwa has insisted that he will not give up his claim to be Nigerian Football Federation president. This is despite the FIFA ultimatum that Nigeria will be suspended from global football on Monday unless he gives up his assertion. Football World's governing body does not recognize the election of Giwa on August 26, but Giwa says he remains the legitimate president of the NFF and would not give up the position. Now, should Giwa refuse to leave and the ban comes into force on Monday, it means the African champions would not be able to play their Africa Cup of Nations qualifier on September 10th in South Africa. FIFA, in a statement on its website, issued a deadline extension of a week, with Monday, September 1, earlier set for the group to vacate, the chairman now to vacate office, saying Nigeria will be suspended from world football if Chris Giwa does not give up his claim to be NFF president. Well, really wonder what Chris Giwa actually wants. We wait and see, and let's just hope we avoid that FIFA ban. That's it on News Now. We thank you very much for watching. I am Deji Badimasi. We'll see you next time.